Good afternoon. Welcome to the June edition of DadX Discussions for the National At Home Dad Network. My name's Matt Strain, and I want to welcome you to our broadcast today. Today, we're bringing on a friend of mine that I've known for a couple of years now, Chris Riley. Chris and I met through our mutual love of non alcoholic beer a while ago, and things kind of took off from there. Recently, Chris wrote his first book called Have You Tried Turning It Off and On Again? Chris has a long background as an accomplished IT professional. Um, like a lot of people, he was fascinated by technology in childhood, led to a huge, a successful career in IT. He continued to work with it, particularly in college. He focused on technology and education, which is something that I know speaks to a lot of us as at home dads and parents and the rest of it. But the main thing that fascinated me with his book is it talks about how technology is moving into more and more aspects of our daily life. And whether you like it or not, it's there. And it comes with good, but it also comes with bad. And there need to be ways for us to adjust to this and handle it in the best way we can. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring Chris on. And hi, welcome to the broadcast, Chris.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. It's one of the first stops on the book tour. So here's
Oh,
to a
well, there we
smooth
go.
operation.
Yeah. Well, again, we're pretty informal here, but let's start with the basics, Chris. I gave a little bit of an intro. Let's talk about what got you to where you are here and why you felt the need to write a book.
So I had been kicking it around for a couple of years of will I, won't I, if I did, what would it be about, and all that stuff. And it started out as a conversation at a company happy hour in 2023 is what it was. And one of my coworkers and I were going back and forth of just like, it is incredible how many people don't understand even the fundamentals of how technology has come into our lives, from social media to how many Internet of Things devices, so your cell phone, game consoles, computers, all that stuff, and how many of them are just in your house. If you ask someone how many devices are in your house on your network, they'll say, oh, I got my phone and my computer. Well, there's your thermostat, your refrigerator, your smart TV, your kid's iPad, your work computer, and now when you thought you had two, you have 15. And it's become a fascinating topic to go down and kind of research that rabbit hole of. And I just thought it was time to write the book because we're not having the conversation of what role we want technology to play in our lives. And I thought it was a valuable and important enough topic. And with my background in education and technology, I thought I was uniquely fitted to be able to tell that story.
Yeah, yeah. And I would like to point out, I don't just have a copy of it. I actually read it. And I'll point out to a lot of the folks out there, those of you who know me know I am just savvy enough with tech to use it, but I'm not by any means a technophile or real up to date on things. I know how to do what I need to do, and that's about it. And one of the things that I really love about the book is that it actually reads like a simple conversation, as opposed to reading like a tech manual or an academic paper or that type of thing. It's really, and I mean this in the most positive way, it's an easy read, but definitely a thought provoking read. And you were talking about the Internet of Things. One that you forgot to mention, and I didn't even realize this until the other day, is that, believe it or not, my washer and dryer are also,
Yep.
uh, you know, Wi-Fi enabled. And again, I don't think I have them hooked up to my network, mostly because I don't remember doing anything to hook them up, and they can't like get into the Wi-Fi without a password, so I have to manually enter that. But, as an example, over the last 3 days, I've had our air conditioning service into our house 3 times in 3 days. Every night we have had our the temps in our house getting up to like 78 degrees. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I get it. It's hot outside, but I mean, I'm in North Carolina. I'm not in like southern Texas. It's only been in like the 90s. I think one day it hit 100. I expect the air conditioning not to be able to keep up, but that seemed a bit much. And what we just found out literally less than 30 minutes before we started this conversation is that the eco savings settings on my thermostat were turned on, and I had turned them off manually on the actual thermostat. But apparently, that's not something you can do. That turns it off temporarily, and then it automatically resets to turn them back on. And the only way to turn them off is through an app that I had never downloaded, never set up. And, here I am, downloading the app from the App Store in my phone, frenetically trying to find the settings and turn everything off the whole time going, but I have this live stream I'm doing in like 25 minutes. We need to make this happen quickly. So long story short, we did. But again, we had to do like, settings resets on, both the thermostats and, resetting up the account, and making everything happen. And I'm not gonna lie, it was a huge pain in the butt. Now that it's done, it's done. But maybe I'm a Luddite, but the whole time all I was thinking is, can't I just go back to the old-fashioned thermostat where I move the little slider thing, and when it's set at 72 degrees, like when it hits 73, it turns on the magic cold air, and when it goes to 72, it turns off the magic cold air, because that's, at the end of the day, that's all I want. I know it's got a lot of extra functions, but I'd rather have the simplicity of use than the complications that come with the tech. But somehow I don't have a choice anymore, do I?
Not really. It's getting harder and harder. And even then, the days are gone where you had the choice to have an old clamshell cell phone versus a smartphone. For all intents and purposes, you now need a smartphone to get through everything. And you even need reliable internet at your house to be able to function in this society. It's no longer a commodity. And you can't, with all the devices on your internet, you can't have the cheapest plan out there because your internet won't work and you won't be able to download or stream anything. So it's definitely kind of forced our hand as a society.
So, with that being said, this real incursion of connectivity that has happened in our society has brought with it a lot of changes. And some of them are good, some of them are bad. I would love to say that, oh, I'm a complete Luddite, and, I use my phone for phone calls and texting, and that's it. And I'd be lying through my teeth. I spend a decent amount of time on Instagram. I mean, let's be honest, that's where you and I met. Whether it's I'm on Instagram or I'm on Facebook or I'm on a Discord server, or, whether it's email, streaming surfaces, the rest of it, we're all constantly connected.
Yeah.
And it's tough. I mean, it's really, really tough. And, you talk in the book a little bit about that connectivity and about both the benefits and the downsides and risks. So, let's talk a little bit about the positive side, because, you always hear about, the deep dark, the internet's
Dark web
your
and
kids and but let's talk about the positive side for a little bit, because, in your opinion, what are the good things that have come from all this connectivity?
I will say, with my knowledge base and assumptiveness, but I have no hard evidence, is that the level of connectivity that's developed in the last 10 years saved lives during the lockdown. During the lockdown, we saw a lot of mental health cases. We saw a lot of really serious ones that happen with people. However, with connectivity, people could stay connected. We could hop on a Zoom with family, with friends. We could do FaceTime all across the world almost instantaneously. So while we were physically apart, we were still very much able to interact and not just think our lonely thoughts. The internet, as it has become a high speed connectivity port, it's insane and mind boggling just how fast information and data is created and traveled. But it's created friendships. I know one of my best friends out in California, we met because we interacted on social media, went back and forth, and I started taking photos of his band a few years ago. You and I met through athletic brewing and non-alcoholic beer, which never would have happened if I didn't meet that connection through social media. Essentially my entire passion for fitness and running and everything stemmed from a want to connect and explore, and through social media and the internet, I was able to find friends and build a community that way. So the connectivity is by far, I think, one of the best positives to come out of all of this internet that we have nowadays. And that's not even to get into like medical and research developments in technology.
Yeah. And, I'll be the first one to state, when I started this whole live stream and monthly, what's now called DadX discussions, and started off as a monthly webinar series, I had done one, and then the lockdown hit. And when the lockdown hit, as an at-home dad, here I was with a kid in kindergarten, who was suddenly being told that they were going to do school online. And my wife works in the emergency department of a major hospital, and is in a higher up role. So I had no delusions about the idea of, oh, we'll be back at school in the fall. Um, I love my wife to death. She was in on many of the calls with the CDC and, the Department of Health for the state of North Carolina. And she told me up front, yeah, you're not going to be back at school. This is going to be going at least through, Christmas of next year. And I was terrified. I mean, I was absolutely
Mhm.
terrified, because suddenly I'm having to help a first grader and a kindergartner educate themselves online. And like most parents, we spend every day convinced that every little thing we do is going to be the one that ruins our child forever. And
And now you're in charge of
luckily,
education.
right. Well, and luckily, I had my connections through the National At Home Dad Network. I reached out through the network and was like, "Hey, I know a lot of you guys do homeschooling. Are any of you willing to come online for an hour and talk the rest of us off the ledge?"
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
honestly, that kickstarted this whole program. Was that we brought in Joshua Berntson, who had been homeschooling his kids for years, who largely came on and told all of us it's going to be okay. It's not nearly as complicated as you think. And to be honest, I wasn't homeschooling. I was not. I was not building a curriculum. I mean, like, there were teachers involved.
Mm-hmm.
To a large degree, I was a teacher's assistant at best, but it still helped to be able to have that connection and have that conversation. And you talked about the connections that happened. Lord knows that through the National At Home Dad Network, we expanded a lot of the things that we were doing. If you go on our website, athomedad.org, you'll see that, we do the monthly DadX discussions. There's a weekly podcast. We do twice a week hangouts in the Dad Lounge, which is largely a Zoom meeting. That started as one of those, oh my God, I'm going to lose my mind if I don't talk to other grown-ups.
Mm-hmm.
And now it still happens twice a week on Mondays and Thursday nights. The podcast started during that time. We've got a mental health support group that really expanded during that time period where, we've got guys doing the peer support. And again, those were all really positive things. My kids were able to use messenger services and FaceTimes and chats and that type of thing to actually, occasionally interact with kids other than the one other kid that we were bubbled up with.
Mhm.
But one of the downsides, and we'll segue into the darker part of this, is that even in my own life, I saw that my partner, who works in the medical field, um, the concept of a day off kind of disappeared. She might be scheduled off for the day, but we have like two meetings that are going to happen on Zoom because, and again, I, I'm a full-time stay-at-home dad, so I have a biased viewpoint of this. But it feels to me like a lot of companies and a lot of employers suddenly realized, well, wait a minute, my employees are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I can text them, call them, hold a Zoom meeting or whatever, whenever the heck I want to. And to a degree, I feel like it's really harmed the whole work-life balance for a lot of people.
Yeah, it is. And the work-life balancing is always a give and take, especially in the digital age. I work in IT as a full-time job, and we get help desk tickets put in at every hour of the day. I will go to sleep with help desk tickets coming in. I will wake up with more help desk tickets. They come in on the weekends. They come in on holidays. It is a full-time job. I was on vacation 2 weeks ago, and my mom was one of those people in the medical field, was on vacation, quote unquote, and she was on meetings a couple days during the week. And it from my viewpoint, I think I'm kind of twofold on that work-life balance, where part of me is, well, I'm in IT. I kind of have to expect to potentially be on call 24/7, because if God forbid the certain situation happens on the network that I won't actually speak into fruition because my boss will hunt me down. But if there was a certain event that happened, I can't not do it because I'm off the clock. I can't not deal with stuff because I'm off the clock. Just like in the medical field, if there's an issue where a patient is coding, you can't say, I'm on my lunch break right now. We'll get to that in an hour when I get back. Well, the person going into cardiac arrest might not be around in an hour. Like there is a little bit of that where, like, yeah, you kind of signed up for this, like pick a different career if you want more separation. But then I do think there needs to be a balance from the corporate side, and I'm lumping hospitals into corporate side, even though they are nonprofit, and
Some of them.
especially in education, you can't expect to have unfettered access to your employees 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 52 weeks a year, 365 days a year. They will start to leave and find companies that will give them more of a break and a kind of reprieve from the office. And you then can't ask why everyone's leaving when they've stated the issues and you don't listen to them. So there is that part of the downside with the adult life, and all this technology and the connectivity. That's kind of one side of it, the like young adult, young professional, and all of that stuff. But then the other side is when we're talking about our kids, the constant connectivity. As much as we want to protect our kids and have them off devices and off social media, you are then creating a social barrier for them in terms of making friends. And, well, did you see the new video that Smosh uploaded last night? And I'm really dating myself with that one. that
Okay, I'm completely oblivious to what that is, but I'll take your
Smosh is
word
one of the
for it.
early YouTubers who, like, I hope your kids are not watching. Um,
Okay.
but it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, if you didn't see it and your parents aren't letting you do that, then that is an element of like the social development now that is hindering your kids. But at the same time, it's really hard to have parental controls and really filter out all of the crap that's on the internet. And it is so easy. There's a new app every day that will circumvent VPNs and firewalls and parental controls. And I'm willing to bet that of everyone here listening, at least 60% of your kids know one of your passwords because they watched you type it in, or they just
Hmm.
guessed it, or you told them 6 years ago and they haven't forgotten it and you haven't changed it. I guarantee you there is that. And they will take that management profile off the phone. And unless you're checking it every day, you're not going to know.
Yeah. And again, there was a time in my life when I was very computer savvy and was on top of all the technology. Unfortunately, that time was around 1986, 87. So that knowledge really is completely useless at this point in my life. But I know even then, I knew more about computers than the coach that was teaching the computer science class at my public high school.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I am almost positive that it is just a matter of time. Now, my kids are young. My oldest just turned 11. My son just turned 8. So they're not, and we haven't allowed quite as much of the technology to them as we could have. We've cut back a lot. You mentioned YouTube earlier. In the beginning, we had no problem with them watching YouTube. They were doing kid stuff. They were watching kid things. Eventually, we ended up having to remove YouTube access from all of their tablets. For my son, it was mostly because he really enjoyed watching game playthroughs and that type of thing. Which, again, I get it. Grown adults watch other grown adults play a sport on TV. Watching somebody else play a video game is the same thing for my kid.
Mm-hmm.
However, part of what made me take it away was that I noticed I really didn't like a lot of the behaviors of the people who were doing these playthroughs when I started seeing emulation of that from my, at the time, 6 or 7 year old. There was a lot of poor sportsmanship. There was a lot of gloating. There was a lot of trash talking, and it wasn't behaviors that I wanted to see my kids emulating. So, we took YouTube access away from them. At this point, I- I'm kind of with you on this one. It's just a matter of time before they figure out how to work their way around that. And at a certain point, I'm just going to have to rely on the fact that they're relatively good kids. Are they going to look for things that I'd probably rather them not look for? Probably. We all did when we were kids. The difference is we just had to find a stack of magazines at somebody's house or in the woods or wherever.
And even then, the difference
Um,
there is now you know what is on the internet, so you can then add router controls and parental controls and all of that stuff with your kids now. When I
right.
was growing up in the earlier .com era, the early 2000s, that wasn't as known that all of that was accessible at any point in time. So my parents didn't know that they had, like, didn't, the conception of parental controls or whatever. I got an email address at 10 years old. Like, stuff like that. Like, you don't know what you don't know, which is why all these app masking things. And you were saying your kids are watching on YouTube. Is Twitch on their tablets? Because Twitch is the other big streaming one that they
Hmm.
will use OBS and stream out to YouTube and Twitch and TikTok and all of that stuff. So there are ways where they can still access that content. And unless
Mm-hmm.
you know to ask those questions and keep your eye out for it, yeah, it's hard. And one of the best things I think people can do is, and by people I mean parents, is create open dialogues early with your kids and create a relationship where they feel safe enough to say, hey, this doesn't feel right, or ask you, can you do this? And just like we do with our help desk, explain the why, obviously at an age appropriate level.
Right.
Give them the why instead of the because I said so. I can't tell you how much that grates me. It's like, no, they're curious. If they can't do something, they want to know why. You're hurt. You're going to hurt yourself. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. It's dangerous because sometimes people don't realize that there are kids your age watching their stream and they don't use the same language that is appropriate for our house. That's a great reason. Developmentally appropriate, gets the point across, and then you've set the groundwork where if they go back, it's, well, this is what I said and this is why. Now there is a consequence to your action if you have circumvented my trust in you.
Mm-hmm. And you know, again, even at the most basic level, time limits are a huge one.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, I'm not one to talk. I mean, I'm 53. I'm that classic Gen X latchkey kid. You know, I would come home from school to an empty house and I'd park
Mm-hmm.
my butt in front of a television, or later my IBM PC playing Zork or whatever I was doing,
Doom.
for hours and hours at home by myself because there was nobody there to tell me no.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, but I know for my kids, you know, we've set a limit on them for screen time for each given day. You know, and that screen time translates whether it's goofing around on their tablets, whether it's playing with the Nintendo Switch, whether it's streaming, you know, whatever they want to watch, or, you know, playing video games on their tablet. There is a limit. Um, there are times that that limit is removed. You know, hey, we're on vacation, vacation's vacation.
Yeah.
You know, you're homesick for the day. I get it. You know, here, well, you know, it's
You
the
feel like
modern
crap, there's
equivalent
not
of,
much to do. Yeah.
yeah, you know, it's the modern equivalent of let's turn on the prices right. Here's your Ritz crackers and your 7 Up. Hope you feel better soon.
Mm-hmm.
But again, for a lot of parents, during that lockdown, you know, I spent a year with my daughter doing first grade during the day. And at the same time, I had a 3.5-year-old son that I had to keep occupied. And at 3.5 years old, you cannot expect them to play with blocks and action figures for 6 hours. You know, so yeah, there was a lot more screen time than I wanted there to be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when it came time to start reining that back in, it was a process.
How do you put the toothpaste back in
Um,
the tube?
yeah, yeah, it was definitely a process. Now, one of the things that genuinely worries me as a parent, my daughter is my oldest, and she just graduated from elementary school. And next year, she's going into the big bad world of middle school and sixth grade. And you know, I can't speak for anybody else, but I remember middle school not fondly. You know, just
I don't think
I'm not.
anyone does. I call BS on anyone who remembers middle school fondly.
You know, again, they're in a lot of ways. I remember middle school as the place where suddenly, like, the world became a whole lot clickier. You know, there were kids that I had grown up with and been friends with since we were in kindergarten that suddenly wanted nothing to do with me
Mm-hmm.
because they were with the in crowd. And to be blunt, I was the president of the Dungeons and Dragons Club, which should give you exactly an idea of where my social status was. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it was rough, but at the very least, at the end of the day, school ended, I got on a bus and I went home. And then at that point, I got to hang out with my friends and didn't have to worry about those people. Um, Now there's social media. And
It doesn't end when the bell rings.
yeah, I neither one of my kids have any social media presence of their own. I have a very public Instagram account that I developed that talks about everything from being a sober parent to doing triathlons to non-alcoholic beer and the rest of it. And there have been times that I post about my kids and I post pictures of my kids. Anything that I post that includes my children, before it goes out, I talk to them about it. I make sure that they are okay with me posting about it. I don't put anything out there that they don't approve. And I try to keep it to an absolute minimum.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. I'm not gonna post about my, every little thing going on in my kids' lives. However, when my daughter did her first ever 5K race and asked me to do it with her as her buddy through Girls on the Run, you're damn right I'm gonna post about that because that was one of my proudest dad moments to date.
I remember you telling me about
Um,
that when I was down in North Carolina, and seeing your face light up on that one was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it was fantastic. And believe it or not, she signed up to do her first triathlon at the end of August.
Nice.
She's doing a little. It's a kids triathlon, so I mean, it's beyond super spread. I think it's like 100 yards swim, a 2 mile bike ride, and a 1 mile run.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, still, that's not nothing.
Yeah.
That's not nothing for a lot of people, and it'll get her feet wet. And if she decides she loves it, it'll make me happy. If she doesn't, I'm okay with that too. But I know for a fact that I can't keep my kids off of social media forever. Um, you know, it may be that they don't get on until they're 15, 16 years old. I know there's a lot of states out there that are trying to pass laws or have
Mm-hmm.
passed laws that are saying that, you can't have a social media account until you're X age. And yeah, that's great. I'd love to see things like that in an effort to protect kids. As far as the effectiveness, think back, Lord knows there was a drinking age when I was in high school, and
Yeah.
I was not over that drinking age, but I certainly did a decent amount of drinking. You know, laws and rules are laws and rules, and kids and teens are going to find their way around them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how in the world do we navigate that world? I mean,
Ain't that the $1 million question? Is how do we navigate? I mean, it goes back to trust. Ultimately, having trust that you have given your kids the tools to be successful, trust that they will come to you when something goes wrong. The worst thing you can do is try to pretend like it's not a big deal, because while it might not be a big deal for you that little Susie pushed Sally on the playground, that might be earth shattering for Sally. So you have to take it seriously. You can't delegitimize their concerns because you had a rough day at work. And I know that's like parent development 101, and I'm the last person who should be telling parents how to parent. But in terms of navigating the digital sphere, it's do your due diligence as well. Have the trust in them and have the conversations with them, but you have to do your due diligence. You have to know when it is the appropriate age for your child. It is not the same age for every child to give them a device. One thing that I loved about the iPod Touch is that it could not connect to the cellular network. It was essentially an iPhone without a SIM card in it, which was great. Now we're getting into iPhones with digital SIM cards, so it's harder to be like, here's my old iPhone, and I've pulled out the SIM card, and now you can't access it unless you're on a Wi-Fi network, which gives me more control. Have the parental apps on it. Call your internet service provider to ask them to walk you through how to set up parental controls. You can do category blocking. You can do full website blocking. There's a myriad of things that you can do with that. And you were telling me about one application that I think you use that's
It's called Bark.
yeah, that really locks everything down and gives you full control over it. There are MDM managed device or mobile device management tools out there that will allow you to do that, where if the kid wants to download an app, it has to send you an authorization code and you have to approve it on your device. It's not just a password anymore. You can also use biometrics to kind of lock kids out. They can't add their own Face ID or their own thumbprint. So if they don't know your password, it's not like they can use their thumbprint to download an app. There's things that you can do as a parent to help control that. One big thing I used to say when I was in education was, you come home, your phone and tablets go in the basket at the front door. If you need it for homework, you are not in your room. You are at the kitchen table while I'm preparing dinner and I can see your screen. Devices do not go in the room, especially behind closed doors. That is another great way to keep your eye on it. And sure, the kid's going to try to push back, especially in the middle school age. So good luck with that, Matt. But at the same time, it's, you know more than them about the potential dangers out there. You don't want the conversation to be how to deal with information getting out there that you never wanted to be out there. You would rather your kids be mad at you for not letting them get an Instagram account than the kids be mad at you for not asking why you didn't do more to protect them when their Instagram gets breached. Those are the conversations. Pick your uphill battle. I think that first one of being mad that you don't give them an Instagram account is a lot better than the darkest side of the other side of that coin. And I don't need to go into details, but everyone can imagine what can happen.
Well, and I would like to point out, I've got the link up on the screen right now. That's the link to pick up Chris's book. Maybe try turning it off and on again. And again, like I said, it's an incredibly informative and thought-provoking book, but it's a really easy read. It's written in a real conversational manner, which I, for one, greatly appreciated, because I'd be lying if I didn't say, over the years, I've read a lot of parenting books. I've read a lot of books about, society and the rest of it. And dry is a good way of pointing them out.
Like textbooks and manuals.
Yeah, there's a good bit of humor. There's a good bit of humor in this one, which I enjoy. There's also a decent amount of memes that are printed, which is kind of funny.
The irony there while I was writing that chapter.
The idea of there actually being prints in a book of the actual meme is kind of hilarious. But when it comes to the dangers that are out there, while you can get your kids ready for as many things as you can, and Bark is just one program out there that does that. There's plenty of companies out there that are offering software that helps you monitor what your kids are doing and the rest of it. The big part for me that I genuinely worry about is trying to balance between respecting my kids' privacy, but also protecting my kids. Because I don't want to barge into my daughter's personal life. I am sure there's plenty of things that she would talk to her friends about that I honestly don't want to hear. I don't. That aren't dangerous to her. It's just going to really hurt my feelings when I read them. Because I know the kind of thoughts and discussions I had with my friends when I was 11, 12, 13 years old, and so much smarter than my parents were, and knew so much more about the world than they ever would. I know I don't want to hear that, but at the same time, I want to know if my kid is dealing with cyberbullying or, God's forbid that they're doing any kind of like sexting or, they've made a mistake as kids do, and maybe they sent out a picture to a person that they're in a relationship with,
Mm-hmm.
and how do you make them understand that, like, just because you gave it to this person, like, understand it's out there in the world now for ever and for everyone, because even though you sent it to one person, who knows what they did with it,
Yeah.
or where when they shared it with somebody that they trusted, but that person isn't trustworthy, or the next, or the next, or the next, you know, because that's the problem with the connectivity that we have, is that every step is exponential.
1 to 2 to 4 to 8 to 16 to 32 to,
Yeah.
yeah. It's, as someone who is in cybersecurity and in the IT field, I hate to say it, but adults are just as bad as kids with stuff like that. They won't learn until it has impacted them personally. Great, power's out at work. I get to go home. Well, you do, but as the IT person, I have to stay and shut everything down. Or the company's breached. Great, I don't have to work for 3 days. Great, well, me and my team are there 24 hours a day, sleeping on the floor, trying to recover a DNR plant. Like, it's until it
Well, not
happens
not
to
just
you.
that, but again, if the company's been breached, great, you don't have to work for 3 days, but understand there's a potential chance that you also won't be able to get paid
There's a
because your
perfect
company
example.
can't do business and somebody has locked down their accounts.
There's the perfect example that I have in my book of a school system here in Maryland who their central office got ransomwared, and they just had repeat copy, paste, and send payroll from like August or something, the last known pay period. They just paid everyone the exact same over and over again because they couldn't access their payroll system. People lost out on mortgages because they didn't have a up-to-date proof of employment. People lost out on car loans because they couldn't do it. People couldn't put down deposits for wedding venues, couldn't change marriage certificate names or anything like that because their place of employment got taken down. Now, if that comes in and goes to you, your bank account, your IRA, your 401k, your 403b, your Social Security, like all of that stuff is out there. And once it's out there, you're not getting it back. You can go to, I believe it is haveibeenpwned.com. It sounds like a made up, like stupid noob gamer tag, but type in your email address, see where it comes up. I guarantee you 99% of you are going to have at least one pop on the dark web.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
it's scary, and part of the reason why I actually changed my email address a few years ago to kind of start fresh and not have it out there. And it's, your information's out there whether you did anything wrong or not. Part of it is you have a LinkedIn account. LinkedIn is horrific for selling account information to anyone who's got a pocket of cash. If you signed up for, I'm just using the tag here, but DadX Discussions e-newsletter, and DadX Discussions gets breached, that is your account information out there. If it's a paid for or you get physical copies, that's your address, that's your credit card, that's your phone number. All of that information is out there. And until it happens to you and you're inconvenienced, unfortunately, the trend is people aren't going to care. You have the perfect example, and this is one that you could use with like your kids, where they're out climbing a tree or climbing on the jungle gym, and you say, be careful, you're going to get hurt. Be careful, you're going to get hurt. Well, they don't listen to you, and they fall off and they break an arm or twist an ankle or get scraped and they get hurt. It's, well, there's your lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Use that context for the cyber world of, you don't want to, from a cyber perspective, break your arm. You know how that's not good. You've trusted me before when I said, don't go climbing on the stone wall, you're going to fall, because you remembered when you fell. Trust me now. Use that authentic context and previous experiences that your kids have had to reinforce this and build that caution.
So this is where the big question comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm old. I remember I remember a time when you could fully function without doing anything on the internet, anything at all.
Those were the days.
You could pay your bills, you could purchase items that you needed for your home or groceries. You ordering something, mail order from a catalog type thing was something that happened, but it was all done with like physical media, or you called a 1-800 number or something. But the fact is, in this day and age, you can't function
Mm-hmm.
off of the internet. There isn't a way easily to function in today's society without at some point putting a credit card number into a computer, whether it's to pay a bill or to cover the membership or to buy something off of Amazon or the rest of it. And it's it's difficult because yeah, there's that risk out there of getting hacked, of getting your information out there. And for a long, long time, I made myself feel better, for lack of a better term, like self-soothe myself with the comment of, yes, but no one cares about me. I'm not important enough. I'm not rich enough. I'm not influential enough for anybody to bother, hacking me.
That's cute.
Yes. Well, and that's exactly it.
And they don't care if you're rich or poor. They want a valid POP. They want a valid email address, a valid name, age, and phone number, and they will take your identity. Which one big cybersecurity thing for that one is, unless you're planning on taking out a loan of any sort, keep your credit frozen with all three bureaus. It is free to do. And you can, even if you are planning on doing like a mortgage loan or getting a new car, something, whatever, you can go in and unfreeze your credit for 24 hours and say, hey, it's unfrozen. If you need it longer, let me know, but it's freezing again in 24 hours. And ask them, which bureaus do you check against? Is it all three? If it's just Experian, great, unfreeze just Experian and leave TransUnion and Equifax frozen. There is no reason why your credit, your personal credit, should be unfrozen all the time. There just is no reason.
So explain that to me for a second. When you talk about freezing your credit,
Yeah.
Does that mean that you're preventing anyone from being able to do a credit inquiry?
Yes.
Or does that prevent anyone from being
a hard credit check? It's not freezing your credit card. That's different.
There we go. Okay, because I need that on a daily basis.
You can still, it's not freezing your credit card with your personal bank. It is freezing your credit score, credit card, 850 credit score thing. So if someone tries to take out a loan against you, they can't, because because when they try to do a hard credit check, it'll kick back and say the credit is frozen. We can't do it. We can't authorize this loan. So it protects your identity.
Gotcha. Okay. Because again, I'm not gonna lie, never occurred to me once in my life that this was possible.
And it's completely free. Just set up an account and you say, freeze my credit, and your credit's frozen.
Awesome. So, because I was going to say, I don't think I know a single person alive who hasn't had their credit card compromised.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I noticed is, in the old days, you used to hear about, somebody got their credit card statement in and somebody went to like Cancun and rang up like 5 grand worth of charges.
Mhm.
And what I found lately is that the whole technique is different now. Every time that I've noticed that I've had my credit card compromised probably twice in the last 5 years.
Mhm.
And both times, what I picked up on is that somebody made a tiny charge,
Mhm.
like $1.50, $2 at a parking garage. And it was a parking garage in a city that I've never been to, or that I certainly haven't been to recently.
Mhm.
And the minute I saw it, it flagged, and I called up my credit card company, and we shut off that credit card. And they issued me a new card and all the rest of it. And it slowed things down. But the only reason that I saw that is because my wife and I actually look at our credit card statement line by line, charge by charge,
Mhm.
and make sure that we recognize these charges. I know there's a lot of people out there that the bill comes in and they just pay the bill and send it without looking.
Mhm. Yeah. And the other thing you can do to help protect your credit card, not just your credit, is I have it set up where if there is any transaction over $1, I get a text message on my debit card and credit card. So every
Wow.
single time you just set that threshold as close to zero as your bank will allow you to. So that way, anytime you get that text message, oh, Bank of America card or First Financial credit card was used, you can immediately go, oh, yeah, well, I just bought gas and this is for the Sunoco station up the street.
Hmm.
Or I'm sitting at home. Who's using my card to buy gas at 7-Eleven? My car's in the drive. Who's using my card's in my hand? And then that's an even faster way of gauging that and trapping and stopping it before those prices add up and before waiting for that monthly statement to come in. It's right there on your phone. And you can usually log into your banking app and say, freeze this card now.
See, and again, that's fascinating because, like, I know that our primary card has that threshold set. I just didn't realize that we could adjust it.
Oh, yeah, you can go in and adjust it
Yeah,
to whatever you
because
want.
ours is set at a point where if it's a major purchase, there's gonna be a text involved.
Oh, I would do the
But
opposite. Set that as close to ground zero as
well,
possible.
that again, I wasn't even aware
Yeah.
that that was adjustable. That
Mhm.
that is again good to know.
Mhm.
Absolutely good to know. Now, for anybody who is interested in picking up Chris's book, this is the site you can pick it up. Like I said, it's paperback. If you're nice, he even signs them. But overall, I'm not gonna lie, it was an eye-opening read, because I really have spent a large amount of my life just accepting certain
Mhm.
things were just a part of life. Um, you know, my dad, I grew up with a dad who worked in I I won't say worked in IT. My dad was on the sales ends of things. He was the guy that made all the promises and then came back and said, "Hey, you guys need to do this." To guys like you, which I know y'all love that so much.
I love cold call.
Uh, yeah, yeah. However, um, I grew up with my dad teaching me a relatively cynical view of technology. And one of the things, that he passed away back in 2014, but before that, as the whole social media thing came about, and as the internet took off, one of the lessons that my dad taught me that has stuck with me to this day is that no company operates without some kind of a product. And the question you have to ask is that what is the product that they make money off of? So if there is a service or a website or something that you are not paying for.
You're still paying
You're
for
not, well, no, you're not paying to use that product. His words were, remember, in that case, you are the product.
it, and your data is.
Because,
Why do you think Google has such great search algorithms and data filters? It's because they have your Gmail account and are taking your metadata and macro data from all of those interactions. Google's not free.
no, and neither is Facebook or Discord or LinkedIn or Instagram or really any site that you use that you are not actively paying for. They're making money somehow, whether that is through selling your data directly to other people, or whether it's the fact that they're using your data to then present to advertisers to sell ads.
And it could be
But what?
completely benign advertisers too. It could be someone like
Mhm.
you post a running thing or you're emailing like, hey, you ready to go for a run this weekend? Now you have Dick's Sporting Goods and Charm City Run and all of these people throwing ads at you. So it's not all necessarily malicious. It's not all going to the dark web. I just want to make that
Yeah.
clear.
Oh yeah.
However, your data is still out there and it is then pointed at another filter and another algorithm, and it's another essentially point of failure along the line for your online personality to become at risk.
Now
More
I
at
know
risk.
we're getting. I know that we're getting a little long here, but we just touched on something that I wanted to bring up. It is you talked about the advertising.
Mhm.
And that's one of the things that I have to ask about, because one of the things that I have noticed is that, especially as we move more and more voice activated smart devices into our lives, um, it is shocking that, here I am. My wife and I are having a discussion about, hey, let's do a beach vacation this year instead of going to the mountains. And all of a sudden, when I start looking on the internet on my phone, I start seeing ads for Puerto Rico and the Bahamas and Miami and the Carolina coast and
Take
all
me
the
with
rest
you.
of it. But the point is, we don't have an Alexa or anything like that in our house. We don't have
Yes, you
anything
do.
and that's what I was going to point out. But at the same time, I've gone into the settings of my phone and turned microphones off and denied access to the microphone to Google unless I am actively pushing that microphone button, which makes me question, is it really, let's be honest, or is it really just listening all the damn time? Whether you have it on incognito mode or your mic is turned off or the
Yeah,
rest of it, they're really just listening all the time, aren't they?
pretty much. And there's a couple different ways to look at that where, yes, you can turn off, for example, with Apple's product. I won't say it now because my entire house will light up, but hey, insert AI name here. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you can turn the bulk features off. It's always listening on the undertones, and some apps, like some safety apps and stuff, do have a limit of access to that in order to run properly. Um, for example, like in with the iPhone 13, it needs to use your location because there's part of the haptics in it where if it senses you get into a car accident, it will send your location to your emergency contacts. So there are some things that like you can
Yeah,
mostly
like
turn off.
My Garmin knows
Yeah,
that. Like if I'm out on a bike ride and I wipe out, it will
yeah,
send the fact that, oh hey, he was in a crash and stopped moving
yeah.
in
And
this location to my emergency contact.
and and so in terms of that, like it's I think a benefit to have that on. The other side of it is every time your software operating system updates, do you go back? And I'm asking you, Matt, do you go back and make sure all that stuff is still turned off? Because with a new system update,
No.
there's always new defaults that are checked. There's bugs that don't keep settings, quote unquote. So you can turn that off in iOS 18, but the second 19 comes out, that toggle switch could be back on, and it could be a default of the operating system. So there's ways in which it's technically justified that it comes back on. I say technically, not morally. Very clear about that one. But there are ways around it. But no, you're not ever turning it off completely, especially with like tracking cookies and stuff. And you're just not, unfortunately.
Okay. So at this point in technology, we can limit the amount of our data that's out there, but we'll never be able to just keep it all to ourselves unless we go completely off grid.
It's cybersecurity at a personal and professional level is all about risk mitigation. Are you willing to accept the risk of signing up for this account? Are you willing to accept the risk of bringing another IoT device into your home? Are you willing to accept the risk of giving your kids a social media network? It's all about a calculated risk analysis. That's all it is.
So, well, I guess we can do the best we can.
Yeah, and I will say some people are doing a great job on it. There are a lot of pioneers and a lot of resources out there. So like with your kids during COVID, with your homeschooling parents, there are a lot of technical professionals out there whose entire careers have been dedicated to specifically ensuring positive child development. And with these tools at home stuff, there are people out there and resources out there who can help you. And I want to reiterate, you aren't alone. If you are scared about the future with technology, you're not alone. That's, again, going back to why I kind of wrote this book, is I wanted to bring the conversation to a central location, get everyone at the same level, and then we can expand and build up and create a productive, meaningful conversation that keeps us as safe as possible. So we aren't all in the dark. We are all connected, and sometimes positively.
Which is important. Well, look, we are just past an hour at this point, and to be blunt, most of our audience as at-home parents, that's about as long as you can leave the kids alone before you have to worry about fires and destruction, especially if they're quiet. But I definitely want to thank you for your time. I really do appreciate you coming, both as a personal thank you and from the National At-Home Dad Network, because you're right. This is a conversation that we need to have.
Yeah.
And as much as I would love to shove my head in the sand and pretend that it's all going to be okay, we can't. We can't. We have to acknowledge the fact that the risk is there. I do want to take this opportunity here at the end to remind folks, the National At-Home Dad Network is a volunteer-run and supported 501c3 nonprofit. We are in the middle of our Father's Day membership drive. Please go to our website, athomedad.org, to help support our mission. Membership is literally $35 a year. When you sign up, we send you a whole bunch of fun swag. On top of that, you get access to our members area, which includes things like video recordings of speakers at past home dad cons and meeting minutes from the board and a few other little things that we give as benefits to the members. But more importantly, it supports the mission that we have. I mentioned we are volunteer run. Dale Van Vlera is our volunteer coordinator. If you have an interest in volunteering with us, please reach out to Dale. That is his email address right there. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook to see what exactly we're doing. And the Home Dad Chat podcast is available on Spotify or wherever you do listen to your favorite podcasts. Home Dad Con is happening this year in San Antonio, Texas. Please join us. It is exactly what it sounds like. It's a convention for at-home dads. It's professional development for professional dads. We're going to have breakouts on everything from possibly how in the world can you stay fit while trying to chase toddlers, and your diet consists primarily of finishing off chicken nuggets and mac and cheese that your kid didn't, all the way to we're bringing in a dream speaker that we have been had requested for years, but we actually have somebody coming in who is going to do a hands-on breakout about hair braiding for those of us who have kids with longer hair and want to be able to do those fancy braids. I mean, I can do a braid, but when my daughter asked for a French braid to go running in, there was definitely a lot of YouTube videos and a lot of cursing and quiet gnashing of teeth on my part as I realized that I'm not competent at a French braid. But again, come join us. Tickets are available now. Please. It is an amazing community and certainly was a life-changing event when I attended my first one in 2016. In the meantime, I look forward to seeing everybody in the not too distant future. In July, we actually are going to be doing something a little different with DadX discussions. Instead of bringing on a guest, um, we have a board of directors for the National At Home Dad Network. I've been on the board now for 6 years. My term is going to be ending on the 13th of September, and I'm going to be stepping away. It's time to let some new dads with some new ideas and new energy come on and join our leadership. We have 5 candidates running for the board this year, and for the first time ever, we are going to be doing a town hall with them live on DadX, so that if you are on Facebook or you are on YouTube, you can type your questions in the chat and ask our candidates directly what their thoughts and plans are for this, so that those that are voting can actually make an even more informed decision about the future leadership of this organization. So stay tuned for details about that, and we'll have dates and times coming. In the meantime, everybody have a great day, and we appreciate you joining us. Bye.